All right, hello everyone. Welcome to our watercolor class today. My name is Megan if you're new here. Hello to Miss Sharon who's joining our live class today. I'm so glad you're here. Today's class, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to be using watercolors, but we're going to be doing a negative treatment, a negative style watercolor treatment to our painting. So for today's class, I'll go over the supplies. Everyone will need some watercolor paper to paint on. I have a couple of palettes to use for mixing colors. You can see this is a palette that I used in my last class. All these pigments you see here can be used again. So once I add water to these, I can actually reuse this red, orange, and some of these blues and greens. So I always keep this. I don't rinse it because I can reuse these palettes, these colors. But I also have an extra just in case. So just sharing that, just so you know to not rinse your colors away at the end of each class. You can always keep it. In addition to the paper and a palette, I have just an array of brushes. These are regular like acrylic, craft brushes. You can use fancy watercolor brushes if you want, but these will also work. You'll need a cup of water to rinse your brushes. Sometimes watercolor artists like 2 cups of water, 1 cup of water to have as clean water, and another cup of water to use to rinse your brushes. I just use the same water cup. It doesn't change things for me at all. So that's your choice. I think you'd be fine with 1 cup of water, but that's totally up to you. In addition to the brushes and the water and all that, I have my watercolor set with me. This has lots of different colors, which is really fun, but any watercolor set you have is fine. You could always make some of these custom colors as you go. If anyone needs a watercolor paint set, let me know. I do have some for sale. So go ahead and drop a note down in the chat below or in the YouTube page, and I'll go ahead and take care of you and send you some options for watercolor sets. In addition to those supplies, I do have a pencil for a little bit of sketching. So for today's class, we're going to be doing a really beautiful tree scene. And we're going to be starting in the foreground and working our way to the background. Now, sometimes it's helpful to sketch some elements to stay within the lines. So we have someone else joining us. All right. Hello, Miss Jenny. Welcome. So we're going to be using our watercolor set, and we'll be using our pencil to get started. So we're going to be sketching the tree in the foreground. So I'm going to be using my pencil, and the tree in the foreground is going to be the biggest object on our page. Now, you can do multiple trees in the foreground if you want to. It's totally up to you. So I'm just going to go ahead and have some fun and just to start sketching a tree. And maybe I'll do a couple trees. You're going to do a tree and you're going to do a little bit of land. So a little bit of the foreground land. And this is going to be one of the biggest elements. So go ahead and just start sketching a tree of your choice. Excuse me. And then you're just going to do some really basic branches coming up, and those branches are going to kind of transition into a canopy. So I'm just going to be playful and do some branches, maybe secondary branches. So we're really just taking a minute to sketch a tree. And what's going to happen is you're going to start to kind of fill in a canopy a little bit. You're going to do a few branches here, and then where you want your canopy to start appearing, I'm going to bring this down a little bit so you can see it. Sorry about that. So you're going to start to use some lines to get your canopy in. So here I might do a little bit of a Y, but then my canopy may start right about here. So see, I have a line right there. That's the canopy of the tree. See that? So you don't need, a ton of branches. It's totally up to you. But you're going to build in a line for the canopy. See that line I have? This is the canopy of the tree. And if you want to come in and add little peepholes of like light through some of this canopy, you can add in a little bit. So I've sketched the tree. So everything within the tree right now, and I'm going to make this actually a little bit taller. I'm going to bring my ground a little bit down. Everything that is the tree and the canopy is going to stay white. And we're going to paint everything around it, which is really fun. And we might do another fun exercise as we get going here. But I'm going to let you play with the sketching. So this is just the first tree I'm doing. I might bring this up a little higher right here. And you can play with the canopy of the tree. So I'm doing some erasing. Maybe this part comes down like a little lower. Maybe this part comes down a little higher. Try to make that canopy a little uneven. So like I did some high and low spots right here to make it look a little, unnatural. So play with the canopy, go in and erase some of the edging, change it up so it looks a little natural. Some of it droops down, some of it comes up. Try doing that as a fun challenge. The more natural your edging is for your canopy, the more natural your picture will be, the more natural your tree will look. Excuse my coughing here. Okay. In my bottom down here, I have a little bit of the ground, and it's a little bit of a hill. So I'm going to tuck more trees in. And then I want you to do a soft erase. Once you feel like you have most of your tree in, I want you to just do a soft erase so you can still see the lines at home. But so you see less of the lines with the watercolors. So once you have your lines in, just do a soft erase so you can still see the lines at home. So always take your time with sketching. Drawing is new for many of us, so if you're not used to drawing, just do your best, take your time. Once you get your sketch in, just do a light erase so those pencil lines are a little softer. And with watercolors, we always have a little bit of extra patience. Sometimes, we take a little bit of time to sketch. Sometimes we have to let things dry. So I'm just doing a soft erase. My drawing might look like it's disappearing to you on the video, but I swear it's still here. I can still see it. So I want you to do the same at home. Just a soft erase. And if you need to take more time for sketching, that's fine. There's no rush. Now, as we're erasing, I'll talk to you about the next step for us to consider, which is kind of fun. And we could have done this next step before we did sketching, but I think it's fun getting the sketching in. So one of the things you can do is if you want to add a really light color all over first to give your tree a little bit of color versus white, we can do that. So this is where we can have some fun. I want you to think about your color palette for today's class. Now, I know some of you might like blues and greens, and I know some of you might like blues and purples. Think about 2 or 3 colors that you might want to use for today. You're going to use a little bit of water, and I want you to pick a color that you like. I have a little bit of this leftover color from last week, so I'm going to use some of this light blue, and I'm going to get that ready. I also have a little bit of this orangey color from last week. I'm going to use a little bit of this orangey color maybe. Maybe I'll use a little bit of green. So get a couple colors ready that you may want to use. We're going to do a really light background color, okay? All over. Now, as you're playing with your colors, there's a couple ways of applying paint to your canvas. I'm going to do wet on wet, which means you can take a wet paintbrush, and I'll zoom this up a little bit more so everybody can see. I'm going to put wet water all over this, and it's not going to disrupt the pencil at all. But take a wet paintbrush and paint it all over. You can do horizontal. And we're going to paint the whole thing. Really light colors. And I can still see my pencil. That's no problem. I'm doing water and doing wet water on my paper to wet my paper. So you can't mess this part up, I promise. Just do water. Get things wet. This is going to help the colors move around.
Megan, do you just have the one tree right now?
I have one tree only. Yeah, we're going to start in the foreground, Jenny. Yep, and work our way to the background. Good question. Yep, good question. Yep, we're doing one tree only, one at a time. We're going to work our way to the background. Then I want you to be playful and bring in just a little bit of color all over. You can do horizontal brush strokes. This is just a light, kind of subtle color. Just bring it in any way you want. If you need to get more paint pigment, get some more paint pigment. Ooh, baby. That one had a lot. Use some water on your brush. Just a nice light color. And we're going to let this dry. So we have a little patience right along the way here. So we'll be going, kind of slow here, but just move this around. I'm just adding a slight tint of color. And if you have any really wet areas, just kind of work those in a little bit. Unless you're playing with like a lot of crazy colors, that's fine. But you can see I just have like a light tint blue. And this is going to be the color of the first tree. So the reason we did this is so our first tree wasn't just boring and white. It has a little color to it. Just a little bit, right? Because as we keep going, you're going to be getting darker and darker in colors. Everything's going to layer upon one another. So I'm just going to add a little more pigment down here to the bottom. If you want to bring in any other colors, feel free. Like if you want to bring in any blues or greens or whatever, feel free. But I'm staying nice and light. And I'm just kind of working this in so it just dries faster. Okay. Nice. Love it. And we do want this to dry entirely before we do our next step. So what I'm doing is, if you want to get a hairdryer, you can get a hairdryer, but I'm just kind of moving the paint around, and I'm just going to kind of give it a minute. Maybe if you have an extra palette thing, you can wave it around. But art takes a while. Watercolor takes a while to dry sometimes, so we're just going to give it a couple minutes. I can still see my tree there, but I have this nice soft blue. Excuse me. And what I'll do is, as this is drying, I'll tell you a little bit about negative painting. So I'll explain to you this as things are drying here. So negative painting in watercolor is a technique where artists, you define the subject by the positive space, and you're going to be painting this area around it, which is the negative space. Rather than filling in the subject itself, which is the tree in our instance, you're going to be painting around it. And this approach is particularly effective in watercolor because it leverages the medium's transparency in the practice. So working from light to dark values creates depth and contrast, and it helps you with the sense of light in the foreground. Or you could do it in the background. So maybe in this class we'll be doing it from the foreground, but we could always try another class where we have light coming from the background. So we could start in the background and work our way to the foreground. So it's kind of fun to practice a new technique. And again, we're painting the negative space, which is the space around the subject. Now, the first step that we took for today's class was doing like a really soft wash. And again, I'm letting this dry, being patient. But once this dries, we're going to paint that negative space around the tree. Excuse me. So what I can do is I can get my color ready on what I might want that to be. So as this space is drying right now, I can say, okay, what color do I want to use for that negative space? So I think I'm going to use, and again, I'm letting that paper dry. I think I'm going to use some blues, and I'm going to get my palette over here ready with some of those colors. But I want you to find a color that you like, and it doesn't need to be too dark. We still want to keep it fairly light. I'm a blue-green girl, so you can always do a couple different colors too, which is kind of fun. So I'm mixing those colors over here to get them ready. And you can bring water from your water cup to your palette. I want it to be, my blue to be a little darker in hue, so a little more gray colored. So that's good there. But I'm getting these colors ready on my palette, so when this is ready, we're going to paint in the negative space, which is really fun. And then we're going to rinse and repeat. We're going to paint in the negative space whenever yours is dry. And you can, whenever you're ready and you feel like it's dry enough, you can kind of go for it. But you can do wet on wet. So what you can do is you can use your water and go around your tree with wet paint. So watch this. I'm going to do the edges first. I'm doing water in the negative space, so wet on wet technique. So I'm doing water really just where it was, but I'm keeping the tree dry, right? Because we're painting the negative space. So I'm doing water around the tree for wet on wet, and I'm going to put my color down. So I'm painting water around my tree. I'm going to do some of the skinnier areas, like in between the branches after. But I'm going around the trunk. I know it's counterintuitive, we just let all the other part dry, but we want the paint to stay in this space. So I'm going around my tree trunk on the sky. So this whole area right here is wet. I'm going to take some of my colors and start painting it in. And you can use a mix of colors. You can do anything you want here, so be playful. Having fun, and I'll do the interior after. I'm kind of just doing a different array of colors, and the wet on wet will help the colors kind of blend together. If you want to do any funky colors, like bring in any purples, you use purples, anything goes. But I'm going around the tree, right? And I'm just going and having fun painting in this negative space. And this is going to be nice and light. So that whole side on that side of the tree is all painted in. And then I'm going to paint in this other side. I'm going to mix more paint along the way. And then I'll do some smaller detail on the inside. So let's see, I'm going to make some more color because I ran out. I use a lot of paint. All right. Ooh, that's some pretty greens right there. Very bold. So I'm going to add a little more water to that. So again, I'm just kind of going around the tree here, bringing in paint pigment. And just moving it around and just letting it dry. If you want to do multiple colors, wet on wet is a great opportunity to bring in multiple colors. So like if I wanted to bring in some blues here, I can kind of dampen in some blues. Totally up to you on what you want to do. I can bring in a little bit of blues just to show you. You can kind of tap in some additional colors. Kind of fun. And then you're going to let that dry. And you're going to go do the same thing. Water first. Maybe use a smaller brush. So I'm going to let this dry. And I'm going to do water. And we have a little patience here, right? This is the fun part. A little water with a smaller brush and dance in between those branches. Negative space, right? So we're doing in between the branches. And then go and grab some of that color. So water on water, the wet on wet for consideration, or you could just paint it in, it's totally up to you. But the wet on wet is kind of fun if you're using multiple colors. I'm going to go right under the canopy, fun faux line you've created. Just doing a little bit of wet on wet. You can just tap in a little paint pigment and just, you want this all to dry, right? So you can see how my tree is starting to come to life. It's starting to jump off the page because we're painting the negative space around it. Just kind of fun. And we're going to let as much of this dry as possible. I'm going to keep doing this wet on wet technique. I'm going around the tree branches. If you have little bits of color kind of popping through, you can add little bits of color. Again, I'm doing this fairly light. If you wanted to make it darker, you could, but I'm starting light in the foreground, and we're going to keep layering. So there's that. I have a branch popping out there. I'm going to add some color and pigment here. Just adding a little bit of darker pigment just to kind of see what happens here. Just having some fun with some darker pigments. So we're going to let this dry. I'm having fun with just some like darker pigments, just playing with some of this space. Excuse me. And then we have a little patience, and we just give it a few minutes to dry. And then we're going to go in and draw in another layer of trees. So I'm going to come down here and add a little more pigment down here so it's a little more clear to the eye that it's. So if you need to add more pigment into any areas, you can do some horizontal brush strokes. Totally up to you. I might have a little bit of a crevice in the tree there. Okay. So I'm going to be patient and let this dry. And again, negative space. So I'm going to grab my waver here. I'm done painting this layer. So I'm going to give this a minute and let it dry. Now, a lot of artists will like walk away, right? And go like, make biscuits or something and come back and it will be dry, an hour later. Some of this is very progressive. But for today's class, we're just going to be patient. We're going to give it a few minutes to dry. And then we're going to use our pencil and we're going to sketch again. So if you have any large watery areas, you can use your pencil and we'll sketch our next layer, but we got to make sure this all dries first. What's going to happen is it's going to get darker and darker in color. So it's the further away we get, the darker these layers are going to appear. We're going to be painting over the negative space every time. So the white tree we see will always be there, but the background will continue to change and evolve. Which is kind of fun because you can add anything you want in this scene. So if you want to do layers of trees like me, you can do that. Takes a little patience. It's drying. If you have any really super wet areas, you could use like the corner of a paper towel. Like I have a couple pools happening, so I'm just going to take my paper towel and just do a little bit of like gentle brushing. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to, but I have some like super wet areas, so I'm just going to wipe that a little bit. It didn't change the color too much, but you can see it picked up some of the water pooling. So it's up to your discretion. Excuse me, on how much water you want to lift versus just leaving the paint there and letting it dry. So some watercolor artists never really want to do that like lifting technique. Some are okay with doing that, some aren't. So it's totally up to you and what you want to try. But it's drying. Again, it's just a little bit of a patience situation. Now we can do as many or as few layers as you wish here. It's kind of interesting. These negative techniques, these negative painting techniques, they look really cool. Like imagine doing 5, 6, 7 layers. Like Sharon and I before class were looking at some fish, Jenny, and the fish were like so layered and so cool. So like as an example, in this first layer that we did, there's only one tree, but imagine doing like multiple trees on a single layer. And then, so maybe on our next layer, we'll do 2 or 3 trees, right? And we're going to make them a little smaller as we go back to the foreground. So maybe we'll do 3 layers in today's class. You have any wet areas like me? I have a little bit of a pooling here. It is drying. I don't want to lift the paint, so I'm just going to be a little careful. If you want to do any gentle dabbing without pulling up paint, you can. A lot of the paint is already setting into the paper. It's picking up a little of the pigment, but it's not too bad. So again, if you ever want to try this at home, you can do a first layer, you know, go flip the laundry, make your soup, and then come back. Maybe have lunch and come back. So this is kind of a fun thing to try. It's a very popular watercolor technique. But I love trying new things in these classes because it's very, very liberating. So this whole side right here is dry. I do have some wet areas up here. Optional equipment for today's class, hair dryer. Our little fanning works. But yeah, we're gonna continue to layer on, and in addition to the tree itself, we're gonna add in another foreground down here. So where my pencil is, we're gonna add in another foreground with another 2 or 3, even 4 trees. So you can choose how many trees are in that next layer. And the interesting thing is this: we don't have to do just trees. We could do a lake in the distance. We could do mountains in the distance. We could do 2 sets of mountains in the distance, right? So I want you to choose as an artist what you want those details to be. Okay? Mine's drying really well. So I'm going to be different. I'm going to do another layer, another layer in the distance. I'm going to keep it low, and I'm going to do trees as my next layer, but my layer behind that is going to be mountains, just to really throw us off here. Or I could even do 3 layers of trees, right? And then mountains as my 4th layer. So I want you to think about, where do you want your second layer to start? So for me, my second layer is going to start right about here. I'm going to use a thin pencil to just sketch that ground. And then I'm going to do some smaller trees. So if this tree is about 1.5 inches, some of these other trees, they could be a little smaller. Light pencil sketches. If anything is still wet, just keep that in mind. I'm pretty close to dry. And I'm doing like, I did 4 little ones already. I'm getting a little crazy here. So I'm just doing tree trunks first. I'll try to bring this down for you. And I'm going to do another tree on the other side. And then you're going to bring branches up to fairly the same area. And then you could do some branching off. And your branches are going to go behind the other canopy. right? And then you can figure out, you're basically drawing behind. So do this sketching, branch your trees off behind. You can create a second canopy. Use your imagination here. Build this forest any way that you wish. And then we're going to paint the negative space for the second layer after. So have fun with this sketching. Get a little dreamy about the second layer we're drawing out. Have fun with it. You're going to go behind that first layer, okay? You're not going on top of it. You're going behind it. Excuse me. So I have lots of trees, so I'm just going to be drawing here for a few minutes. These are a little thinner, and they are not perfectly even. God help me, it's all right. I love to just be a little bit, footloose and fancy free here. Try including a little bit of new foliage to see what happens. So my trees came here. I'll hold this closer so you can try to see what I've sketched so far. I did a lot of trees in this layer. I probably did too many. It's okay. I'm just here to have fun and not overanalyze. But it's fun to play with this technique because you figure out how many I should add and how many I shouldn't add, right? I went a little crazy, but it's okay. But I'm adding some canopy. And I might erase this other tree over here. I don't need this. I got a lot going on. If you're doing an erase, just do a gentle erase because it might pull up some of the paint behind. Excuse me. And then this is the fun part once you're sketching. Once you're done sketching, you can paint in the negative space. Now the negative space is around the trees that you just painted. So I'm going to make a little bit of a blue color. I had some bluish greens here. I'm going to mix, as this is sitting here and I'm looking at it, I'm going to mix another color. I'm going to make more of a blue. Kind of do like a navy blue kind of color. Which means if I need to add a little black, I can to make it a little darker. Oh, that is a lot of black. Too much black, Megan. Come on. So you're going to do the negative space around the second layer only, okay? Try that. And it doesn't have to be very dark, right? We're still doing more layers, so you don't want to make it too dark that you can't paint anything else. So temper how dark it is. I didn't get my blue at all. My green just happened again, ladies. I gotta get this blue going here. There we go. That's more blue. If you want to do little purples, you can do lots of colors too. So maybe I'll be fun and I'll just mix some purples. Again, you might want like a second water cup here. My water's getting pretty yucky. So this is where some watercolor artists have, again, those 2 cups. But I have a little bit of purple here. I might dabble into this second layer. But again, I'm going to take and I'm going to paint the negative space around this. Now that's pretty dark, so I'm just going to put a little water on. And I'm going to paint the negative space. You can do wet on wet, or you could just do wet brush on dry paper. That's fine too. But I'm painting around these second trees. I like the wet on wet because it helps things blend in a little more. So you're doing the second layer only. I'm going to do wet on wet, so I'm going to go in between some of these big spaces first with my water. You're going to stay behind the first layer and go around the second layer. And this is one of those pieces of art, it's progression, and it's going to look cooler and cooler the more you go. It's just about enjoying the process. A little purple. Let's bring in a little purple for Jenny. Channeling inner Jenny here. A little purple for Jenny, a little blue for Sharon. All right. I know Sharon likes purple too. All right, so I'm going to do a little bit of these colors in here. So pretty. And then don't touch it, let it dry. Move to the next section. So use your water on water. Go around those secondary trees. Stay away from those first trees, right? So fun. Excuse me. This is one of those types of paintings where it's like the reward is worth all the work you do because it's going to look so cool. So I'm going to do water on water over here around those second trees. You can control kind of how the stuff pulls up. I'm doing water on water around these trees over here. Now everybody did a different number of trees, which is totally fine. So just stay on that second layer. You're painting the negative space. I'm doing water on water, so around the negative space on the second layer only, and I'm bringing in color after. So I'm bringing in my purple, I'm bringing in my blues and my teals after to have them play and blend into one another so the pigment can dance. Really fun. And it's going to get a little darker as we go, and that's the intent. It's going to be fine, I promise. But I have a little bluish greens, I have a little bit of purples I'm playing with. Okay. So those trees are starting to pop out a little more. I have more work to do over here because I did a million trees, so don't mind me. But I'm doing water on water in between all of these secondary trees in the negative space, which is the space in between the objects. So I'm painting in between the trees, and I'll do all the small branches, but use a brush that works for you. And again, with watercolors, you might get some of these poolings. I didn't tape this watercolor down, this paper down on a board. Again, if you wanted to tape your watercolor paper down on a board, I'll do that for our next class so it doesn't ripple up. I always forget. Oh, and I just have a little bit of splatter situation happening. We're just going to embrace that little imperfection that just happened. I'm going to quickly wipe it up. Let's see if I can save it. All right, good enough. And I'm going to bring in pigment onto my wet on wet. In between the second layer of trees. And you can see the second layer of my trees really starting to come out. I'm doing a little purples, a little bit of blues. You can get darker with your pigments if you wish, but we're going to do another layer as well. So we're going to keep working our way back, which is really fun. Now, one of the things I didn't talk about out loud is leaving space in between your trees so you can continue to expand. I had a ton of trees here, so I have less real estate per se in between the trees. I'm just going to have to be more detailed as I kind of keep going. But I'm just going to keep working my way. I have a lot of trees and a lot of negative space around the second layer. You're going to use a small brush in between your branches that you created for your second layer of trees. So I'm using wet on wet. Again, I'm going around my trees. Excuse me. Ooh. And then the paint pigment just sears. It's so pretty. Just takes right off. And it will stay right within those bounds. As long as you had that wet on wet, it will stay right within those bounds of where you painted that wet paint, which is really fun. And then the top part in between those branches will come to life once you get your small brush and you do your wet on wet in between those top branches. So right up here, you can't see into those branches yet because I haven't done it yet. But if I come in and I look for my second branches, I'm doing the negative space on those branches only. And they'll start to jump off the page. So I'm doing wet on wet in between those secondary branches. And then I grab the paint pigment and I bring paint pigment in. To that wet on wet space. And I'm going to let it dry. And you want to bring in enough pigment so you can see your work, right? So you can see my work starting to appear here. My lines and my form per se. Now you can go back and kind of tweak any of these areas with nice clean lines against the side of the tree trunk if you want to bring in, adjust some of these colors. So you can see all those branches are starting to appear here, which looks very cool. I'm going to do the same here, wet on wet, around the first layer and around the second layer. So I'm keeping that first tree present. But I'm outlining the negative space around those second layer branches. So this is kind of an enjoying the process, not hurry up, is it over? It's enjoying the process. It's a great way to relax. And I know you both work really hard and you have a lot going on, so I hope you're enjoying this. You deserve this downtime. You deserve this break. There we go. You can see all these little branches are starting to pop out, right? Kind of cool. And as we add more layers, the more detail is going to appear. So you can have some fun if you wanted to bring in some additional contrast. You can bring in additional contrast. Like I have a little bit of this darker green. I'm just touching in here and there just to see, oh, what's going to happen if I just put a little bit of darker green here. I'm going to let it dry. So it's really fun with watercolors to play with the pigment. Oh my gosh, so much fun. Whether it's darker greens or blues or whatever, it's really fun to see what happens. I got a lot of little tree crevices up here. I got to keep going. I keep getting distracted. There's so much fun color movement happening here. I also need to mix more blue. I ran out of my blues. And everything's just going to dry as we go. So anything you can just like let it be and like let it dry. That's the name of the game for today. If you want to take your time and let things dry and kind of come back to it, that's always okay too, okay? And I have this little funky green I'm bringing in here. Now it's up to you if you want to do wet on wet or, wet on dry. It's totally up to you. I'm doing a little bit of both right here just to be playful. Got to bring in more blue. A little more blue, a little more purple. So just mix more colors along the way. It helps things dry a little bit too. Let's do a little bit here. Ooh, that is dark. Got a little bit of dark action happening. A little bit of dark blue pigment, a little bit of a royal blue kind of situation happening. It's kind of pretty though. So it's okay if you mix a different color, just embrace the process like I am. I'm just kind of bringing it in and just kind of dabbling it around a little bit. It's kind of fun to see how it's evolving, especially if some of this is still wet. I'm just kind of tapping it in different areas, and we're going to let it dry, and it's going to look so cool. So it's okay if you are constantly like bringing in other colors. It's kind of a fun part of the process. But I'm dancing around those secondary branches. If I can remember where they are, there's one up there. Let's put a little bit of greens up here. Just a little bit of contrast up top. That's all right. It's all right. You just gotta have fun with it. If you want to bring in a little more contrast, feel free. It's up to you. You could go as dark or as light as you want, and it's a kind of a fun thing to experiment with watercolors. See how I keep bringing in a little more pigment as we go? It's kind of fun. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. I might bring in a little more from the bottom and bring it up just to be playful. But I'm going to let this dry here in a minute. I promise I'll stop touching it because we're going to do more work as our next layer. So just enjoy the process. Relax. Excuse me. You can add more water to your paint pigment if you need to make it lighter versus darker pigment color. So I'm just being really playful with just bringing in a little more color. It's still fairly light, but I'm just bringing in some new colors kind of along the way. And I'm going to let that dry. My whole top is still fairly light. If you wanted to just bring in like little pops of color, you could. Totally kind of up to you on how you want to, manage the space. Totally up to you. But I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to get my handy dandy tool out and let this dry. But you can see I have clear layers. This is pretty light, right? This layer in between. So I can always kind of, if I want to just do a small, simple line, again, with art, there's no rules. So if you want to just do like a little bit of an outline here and like kind of play with this blending a little bit here, you can do that. It doesn't matter. This is art, right? So you can improvise. Like as that second layer is drying, if you want to come in and play with like this other layer to kind of make it stand out a little bit more, you can do that. It's totally up to you. I'm not going to do too much, but I'm just giving you an example of just, you can make modifications along the way. It's totally up to you. Right? To play with some shading, maybe between the layers if you need to. Mine needed just a little touch, and that was a nice little touch here. It's kind of just a little contrast by this line, but I'm keeping that tree nice and light. You could barely see the work that we did, that first wash we did. Totally fine. I just kept it really, I kept it really light. Some of you might have gone darker than me. Totally fine. But I'm letting layer number 2 dry. I'm moving the paint around a little bit. I got a lot of wet paint up top in between my branches. It's okay. I'm going to let it dry. I got a lot of fun color blending going on. If you have paint pooling in one area or another, you could just use the tip of your brush to move it around. You want to add any you know, kind of washy-like detail to this top part of the tree. If it needs a little bit of character, use your brush, give it a little character. If this is too white for you on this first layer, you can play, be a little playful. Just keep it light in color. You can add a little bit of texture if you want to. I'm going to keep it fairly light though. I'm not going to do anything too crazy because I don't want that layer to go away that we spent time doing. That brighter layer per se. But if you want to do any outlining, to firm up any of these layers that you have so far, like a gentle outline around any of these edges, you could do that. You could always do that as like a touch up at the end as well, but a nice gentle line, nice gentle outline to clean up the layers. Mine are a little messy, which is okay, but if you want to do a nice clean gentle outline of any of your trees, you can do that. Oh, I missed a spot. You might notice you might miss a spot. I missed a spot right here on my second layer because I have so many trees and so many Ys. I missed a spot right there. Oh, and I got on my tree branch. Try not to get on your tree branches like I did. I'm going to use my paper towel because I need that tree branch to be lighter than the background, right? Because we're painting the negative space. So I'm just going to use my paper towel and blot up this tree branch so it stays lighter. And I'll go back and fix that after. So having a little patience again, I'm just going to wave this around a little bit. But I'm going to get darker with my next layer. So you can see how we're getting darker as we go. And it's going to get more and more mysterious. Now I should have left a little more canopy on top of the second trees. I didn't. It kind of just blends in a little bit up here. But I may do a couple tiers of mountains as my next. My trees are pretty dense. I could do like a low bush, like a low set of trees. Maybe I'll do like a low set of trees, not tall skinny trees, but maybe like some pine. Again, this is your painting, so I want you to think about what you want to build in as your additional layers. This is your background. What do you see as you look through the back of these trees? You could put an animal, like you could put a deer. I know animals are hard. You could do a row of pine trees. You could do anything. You could do a water feature with trees on top of your water feature. You could do a house in the distance. You could do a couple tiers of mountains. Totally up to you.
Megan?
Yes.
You can go in and erase pencil after it dries too, right?
It depends on where you are and what you're doing.
Yeah.
What the heck is going on here? I can see some of my pencil here, Jenny. So I would say if you are putting paint over pencil, it will be more difficult. I would say do a soft erase. Do more of a soft erase next time. I didn't do a good soft erase on my second layer, which is why I can see pencil. But let me test and see if I can do a gentle erase right now. Yeah, I can do a gentle erase. It's taking up some of the paint, but it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just was noticing some pencils.
Yeah, I got a lot of pencil coming through, Jenny. So I would say as you do your next layer, do a soft erase before you paint on top of it.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
No worries. All good.
Yeah,
no worries. So you're going to know when your painting is dry enough to do sketching. Mine is, it's close enough for sketching. I have a wet area right here and it's some wetness up here. But again, it's just a little bit of patience. It doesn't take too long if you have air on it like this. I'm going to bring mine up so you can see it. So you can see that first layer was that big tree, which is really fun. Then my second layer was all those little trees. The third layer is going to be even darker. So I am probably going to do, I might just do a layer of mountains. I might do 2 more layers of mountains in the distance. Maybe like a low tier of mountains and then a higher tier behind it. So you can decide. Think about it though, because you want to control the height, right? You only have so much background real estate to work with. So my first layer of mountains are going to be, 2 inches up, maybe 2 more, and then I could even do another 2, 2, and 2 of kind of height for mountains, because I have probably 6 inches of height to work with. Think about if you're doing trees, how skinny they are, right? If you're doing another layer of trees, do another layer of trees. If you're doing a pond with like a peninsula, you can put anything you want. Use your pencil to help you imagine. The nice thing about having this dry with a pencil is you can erase your pencil gently. Now, you have to be careful with erasing your pencil because it will pull up some of the paint pigment that you're already layering. So just be mindful of that. All right. So take your time. I'm going to just gently just kind of sketch in a mountain or a hill. I'm not really sure what's going to happen here. Okay, so I sketched in here, and I'm going to fill in my negative space behind this mountain. This mountain is going to be this color blue right here, and I'm going to do another color in the background. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean I have to do in between all these damn trees again? Absolutely, but it's a part of the process. So this is the fun part. It's going to get deeper and deeper in color, okay? So I did my little line on my mountains. That's cool. I'm going to make sure I have the right colors I need on my palette to keep going, okay? So this is a process, but it's really fun if you just like let it roll, right? See what happens. I'm going to get a little darker in color. I'm going to make some purpley blue colors, and I have a little bit of black pigment here. Ooh, look at that. That is so nice. I want to make sure I mix enough of this so I don't run out of the color. Imagine that. So there's some color there. I'm going to do kind of, and you can change what colors you use. So I'm going to do like blues. I'm going to do greenish blues and purple for this next layer. It's going to be real fun. So it's kind of fun to figure out if you want to change your colors up along the way. It's like, hey, why not, right? All right. All righty. So I am ready to do, I drew my mountain in here. It's really low. It's kind of like down here. I'm going to do the negative space of that mountain, which means I'm not painting the mountain, but I'm painting everything else in the sky. So I'm going to use like a medium-sized brush, and I'm going to paint, again, in between these trees. It's going to be worth it. Trust me, it's going to be so pretty. Around the mountain, and I'm just going to bring in some color so you can see it. Ooh, baby. It's going to get a little darker. A little darker. And I'm going to do wet on wet so these colors can be playful and blend. So I'm going to be really careful to stay around my trees. I'm going to bring in some fun color. I want it to be different than the other layer, right? See what we're doing here? So my mountain layer will stand out. Because that mountain layer is layer number 3. And I will tape this down next time. If anybody wants to, like, if your thing is dry and you want to tape it, I'll do that maybe for the next layer. Because I have pooling going on. So shame on me for not doing that in advance. Oh no. So it's definitely, it's pooling here. I'm going to use a paper towel, and I'm going to pull this and tape it on a flat board. Now I have a whole bunch of canvases here, which work great for taping. I'm just going to pick up some of this water so it doesn't roll around. And I'm going to grab a canvas and tape it on a canvas. Let me see here. I have a canvas board. It's going to be nice and solid. So let me grab this really quick. I'm going to pull it off of my, I have a watercolor sheet pad here. I'm just going to grab it, pull it off, and I'm just going to tape it. I think I just bought some masking tape, which is convenient. I'm not sure where I put it, but I just pulled off the sheet of my watercolor paper, and I'm going to tape this, if I can, down flat. Excuse me. I will stop coughing eventually. I promise. I don't know where my masking tape is that I just bought, but keep painting. I'm just going to look for my masking tape really quick. Where did I put it? Let's see if I can find it. Otherwise, I'll just leave it as is and try to find some other tape. Where did I put my masking tape? You know, I have these stickers I can use. Okay, I have a little bit of packing tape I'm just going to put in the corners. Don't know where that masking tape is I just bought. Sorry. So what we can do in the next class is I'm going to do this on the back side. I don't know if this is going to help, but I'm going to try. There. I have packing tape. I'm just going to do little corners. But you're going to fill in that third layer. I might even do it right here. There. That's better. But artists, watercolor artists usually will tape all the way around the whole watercolor paper, so there's no like pooling. So for consideration, we'll do that for our next class. But I'm going to work and paint in the negative space of this third area, which is here. And I want it to be darker and different than the other space. So this is my mountain down here. I'm going to move the pigment around. If this area is still kind of wet, that's fine. Go for it and just fill in. See how it's getting a little darker? I'm going to come down here and I'm going to outline my mountain so everybody can see it. It's down here at the bottom. See, I'm kind of filling the background in to make it darker so you can see my mountain. And I have some pooling of pigment. You'll have that. You can move it around, move your pigment around. You can do wet on wet, or you can just do wet on dry. It's totally fine. The important thing is I want to make sure there's a distinction with your layer 3 and the layer 2 color here, because I want that mountain to stand out, which you can see that mountain already starting to jump out down here. And I am going to paint in between of all these little, just to darken this. Making it a little darker, a little more moody. My layer, my mountain is here. So I'm painting the negative space around layer 3. Everybody's doing different things, which is really fun. But it's going to continue to get a little darker and a little darker. Which is really fun. It's really fun to kind of see how it evolves. And you can use different colors, so I'm kind of bouncing back and forth. Here's my mountain layer here. So my mountain's jumping out in the distance. That was the intent. And it's really fun to see how this negative space evolves, right? I think the third layer, things really start to come to life. You can really start to see the work you're putting in. And then my mountain layer is right here. And I'm filling in the negative space around the mountain. So it was a little detail, but it was a lot of background space to paint in, which wasn't too bad. Like that happened pretty quickly, right? So you can see my 3 layers. You can see my white tree in the foreground, my second layer of trees, and then my mountain in the distance. I'm going to do another mountain layer on top of this. I might even do 3 if I have room, which would be really fun. And I'm just going to come up here and just make sure that some of the crevices in between these trees are just getting a little darker as we go. So between my layer 2 trees, I'm just coming in and just making sure there's some darker colors touched in here because I want it to all kind of match visually. Because the sky is changing because we're evolving the layers. So I want to make sure it's getting darker in between these trees, in between our layer 2 trees. But gosh, I'm using I'm using blues, I'm using a little bit of green, greenish teals. But you can see that mountain layers there. Excuse me. And you can be playful with these colors here. And my mountain layer is already drying here. So number 3 is already drying. So you're going to know, and I'm going to get my thing and wave it around. I'm going to do another layer. So work at your own speed here. But you're going to see this is the evolution. You choose your layers, right? It's kind of neat. It's kind of neat to see this evolve. Jenny, we almost did koi fish, and Sharon's like, I'm not sure about fish, Megan. And I said, it's okay. But I'm really interested in doing the koi fish. There was a really beautiful, like, colored rainbow starting color. And then Sharon and I noticed they did like a darker blue layering on. So it was like it started with a vibrant color base, and then they did just blues only. So that could be a fun thing to try.
Yeah, I'd love to do a koi fish.
Okay, cool. So we can all practice on our off days sketching koi fish, right, with pencils on paper. I'll do the same, and I'll upload to Patreon our koi fish inspiration. That could be really fun to try.
Awesome.
So this is a good first pass at our negative spacing, right? So we'll get the hang of it.
Yeah, I think I felt like I needed to practice a little bit.
Totally. It's kind of like understanding the concepts a little bit, isn't it, Sharon?
Yeah.
Yeah. The fish just looked too intimidating.
Yeah, totally.
Until I had a handle on what we were doing.
I get it.
I know. I don't blame you, girl. I do not blame you. But you can see the impact of 3, 4, 5 layers of negative spacing and how dark and the contrast it will get. It's going to be so cool. So cool. And if you have any large pools of water, just use the corner of a paper towel. But I cannot wait to add more contrast. Imagine a dark, dark contrasting background as we go, ladies, with these trees and these mountains. It's going to be very cool. And I have, this is fairly dry over here. I have a couple wet spots right here. Oh, and Jenny, look at this beautiful moonstone ring I just got. You'll appreciate it.
Oh, nice.
Isn't it cute?
It is.
And this is like a little turquoise one. It's like a little baby, but it's cute.
Oh,
Yeah.
very cool.
Oh, I love gemstones. Oh my gosh, they're my favorite.
Yeah.
I'm like such a rock nerd.
So Megan, I have to leave, but I'm going to come back and finish with the replay. But I wanted to show you before I
Oh, yes, please do.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and pin your screen on my screen here. I'm recording in a separate video here, but I can see you here.
Okay.
Oh, you have really nice contrast, Jenny. Beautiful job.
Well, hang on. There we go. How's
Oh,
that?
I love it. You did awesome. I love it. Yours is so much darker than mine. And I love it's like more blacks, like it's a darker navy. I love that.
Yeah, it looks better on your screen than it does in person.
I know. Isn't it funny? We're so judgy in person, aren't we?
Oh my gosh. Right? This was good. I almost didn't come because I wasn't sure about this technique, and I'm really glad that I showed up.
I know. I am too. And finish it out and then share it in the Patreon space. I love how you went darker. It's so awesome.
Absolutely. Good to see you.
You too.
Bye, ladies.
Take care.
Bye.
Awesome. I love how she went darker. That's what I'm trying to do, and she totally achieved that. Okay.
I think if we do the toy fish, I may just like play with a background.
Yeah.
Just get like because I feel like my tree, like I don't like how light my trees in my foreground.
Totally. So doing those bright colors as our base. Yeah, we'll do that next time for sure. But what an impact that made, right? From that inspiration we saw.
Absolutely.
I love it.
So cool.
It was so cool. So I'm going to do a second layer drawing here. I'm doing a second mountain tier. I think that's fine. It's not that high, but I'm going to do another one behind it. I'm going to go darker with this one. Wish me luck. I'm going to do a little bit of this, and I'm going to do wet on wet. So I'm going to do negative space for a fourth layer. So you can decide again what you want your layers to be. Sharon, did you do mountains? I couldn't tell from your detail.
Yeah, I put too much water, so now I've got to wait forever for it to dry so I can do another layer.
Yeah, no worries. It's all good.
I just got I've been making Christmas cards with my art for a few years now.
Yeah.
Giving them as gifts just for a few select people.
Yeah.
But I used the patchwork heart that we did, and I used the mandala, the watercolor.
Yeah.
That we did. And then I'm using, remember we did the snowman, let it snow?
Yeah, that was so cute.
That's my Christmas card this year.
Oh, I love it. What a good idea. Oh, I love that. What a good idea. Yay. Yours came out really good. I remember seeing yours. It was so cute.
Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. The bags, the characters that begin with B.
Oh, the little boo-boos.
Yes. Where can I see an example of those?
Yeah, I have one. I'll grab one before the end of class.
Okay.
I'll share it with you. No problem. Absolutely. So I'm just doing my fourth layer, and I'm making it a little darker. So my second mountain stands out. So my fourth layer is a second tier of mountains. And again, you just want to have a little patience as you're going around things and filling things in. Excuse me. And you can use this time just to really outline your branches to make sure your branches are nice and clean and clear. The Y's of the branches. And if it's too wet, yeah, just wait. So I have a second here that's kind of slowly happening here. You may need to mix more paint pigment as you go. I feel like I'm constantly running out of the paint pigment. It's just happening. It's okay. I'm just embracing that. It's all good.
Well, and with this inspiration, the color, it doesn't so much matter if the colors match exactly.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Exactly. Excuse me. Yeah, because they're all kind of, for me, it's all kind of blues and greens. And my purples are slowly disappearing, which is fine. I can always add more purple. You know, like we're doing so much layering, it's all good.
I have a ton of cat hair stuck in my.
Oh, yeah.
I have to brush it all out after.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So you can see how that's all really coming together. You can decide, you know, where you may want to add in more pigment or not. But for anybody watching our recording, our classes are usually about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So if you are enjoying yourself, I encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like this video. We definitely appreciate your support. And I'm so glad that you're with us. And thank you, Sharon. And I know Miss Jenny had to leave, but thanks for being here for the live class. It's always fun to have people for the live class too. Our little exclusive community. If anybody wants to join the live classes in the future, check out our Patreon space and you can join our live classes and join our community and enjoy our fun conversations along the way. Always fun conversations. All right. We love having new people join us. All right. So you can see how fun that additional layer has jumped out. And it looks so different, you know, from far away, right, Sharon?
Yes.
It really does. So you can, you know, bring in a little bit of the dark, you know, as you're getting darker, make sure you're adding a little bit of those darker touches, you know, up here in between your trees. Like if you're having those darker colors kind of pop through, it's important that you kind of remain that consistent, you know, look. If you want to bring in some of those darker colors. For that, just that continued contrast. And you'll see where you might need to add more contrast. Like over here, I need to add a little more contrast in between these trees for it to maintain that consistency. And you can continue to make tweaks, right, along the way. It's totally fine. I am going to add a third tier of mountains because I can, of course. So I'm going to put my brush down and I'm going to be patient and let this dry. But I've done 4 layers. Again, that first layer was that big tree in the foreground. The second layer were those smaller trees in the second in that background. And then I have 2 layers of mountains, which were layer 3 and layer 4. And I'm going to do 1 more layer of mountains. And then my 5th layer here is going to be really dark. So it all really starts to jump out even more. But I hope everyone's enjoying this. It's so much fun to try new things. There are 2 ways to paint negative space with watercolors. You can work foreground to background, or you can work background to foreground. By working foreground to background like we are today, the light source is in the front of the painting. But you can do the negative watercolor techniques by doing the lightness coming from the back. It's kind of like you're in a dark forest and looking through the dark forest, you can see the light in the distance. So how cool is that, right? So there's a lot of ways to approach this. And I love teaching these new techniques because it inspires us to paint different subjects, but also use different colors. And again, we always have patience with watercolor. things take a while to dry. So as I mentioned in the beginning of class, you know, you can do some of this and come back to it. Sometimes these negative art pieces take a long time if people want to really take their time. So today's example is, you know, hour and a half or so class. We're just introducing you to these concepts. So you to think about what colors to use, what forms you want to try. I'm waving my palette around. It's drying pretty well. But go back in and refine your edges of your tree branches. Make sure your background between those tree branches gets darker as you go. All right. So with my pencil, I'll do my third. I think it's dry enough to sketch my third mountain layer. It's always fun to see how these mountain layers come out a little different. Now I am going to make a darker color. I'm going to go for a darker blue. That's my goal. Excuse me. But I'm going to mix it on my palette first, right? So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to mix my color of choice. A little bit of black, a little bit of blue. Mix enough pigment so you don't run out. Oh, that's really dark. Maybe we'll go that dark. I'll be that bold. It's really going to jump out, Sharon. And then you can paint, again, that negative space, that water on water, or you can just go for it. It's totally up to you, but just stay in the lines, right? But it's so fun. I'm going to go really dark. It's fun to see what happens here. So you're painting the negative space. And for me, I'm going around that third mountain line. It's kind of like painting the night sky around it. Do nice clean and crisp lines along the edges of your trees. You can try the technique of doing wet on dry or wet on wet, totally up to you. You can add pigment if you need more pigment. And it's really fun to watch the transformation of this style painting. Really fun. I will go up in between the trees with a nice brush. This is where you can get some nice clean lines. Between your branches and your trees. Take your time though, go nice and easy, nice and slow. And you can decide when you have enough layers. I'm focused on having my pigment match kind of in between each area. A little darker here and there. And I can add more pigment as I go. And that third layer is really starting to jump out. Now I ran out of pigment because I was using a lot of it, so I'm going to have to make more, which is fine. But for any of these final steps, you can use a much smaller brush to really outline some of these branches if you wish. And for our next watercolor class, we'll definitely tape down our paper to a board before we get started so there's less pooling. So it's a flat watercolor surface. So the paint rolls around less. All right, I'm going to make some more paint pigment because I ran out. But you can see how beautifully this has evolved. And this is 5 total layers. 5 total layers today. Now you can do as many or as few layers as you wish, as we discussed. So always just follow your intuition. You know, sometimes artists will like plan out in advance like what their layers will be if they're doing like a very particular painting. So just keep that in mind. Like this is our first introductory painting with the negative space. So it's kind of fun just to kind of go for it and not overthink it. But the more, if you love doing this style painting, you can plan out what you want your layers to be and what colors you want to use, right? So in one of our future classes, we're going to do koi fish, and Sharon and I saw it was a beautiful like rainbow colored star, and then they used a dark blue to kind of fill in. It was awesome. So we're going to try that in the future. So it's just that inspired us, right? Using those different colors and trying a different form. And that's one of the reasons why we're here, right? Is just to be open to how we can, you know, play with different styles of creating an art and doing what inspires us. So I encourage you to join us in the future, but also consider other things that you may want to try as well on your own. So I'm going in with the tip of this brush and I'm going right in between for some really nice finished detail. Going in between and making sure that there's a dark contrast in between these branches, doing nice smooth branches. Where it may have looked messy before, I can use the tip of the brush to clean up the branch space. And boy, does that help tremendously. Right? So fun. The more you paint, the more familiar you get with your tools, and you can kind of dance around your branches with just the tip of that brush. It's kind of neat. And that's where those secondary trees will really start to pop out, because you're really bringing in that dark contrasting color from that 5th layer.
It's a lot harder to remember
Yeah.
where I'm at.
Yeah.
Like that's what I noticed. I think that's what I don't like about the first canopy layer.
Yeah. Because it was too light for you.
Yeah, because I got lost in where I was supposed to be.
Yeah, agreed, because it was very light, right, compared to that second layer. So we could have made that second layer darker, right, Sharon, as an example?
Yeah.
And it would have made things a little easier. That's a really good point. Yep. And the more people that practice this technique, Sharon, the more they'll be like, I really want there to be more differentiation between layers, you know, even as we get going. So they stand out more, right? So those are just choices.
Those are okay, and I'm kind of okay with the foreground at the bottom, but
The top is too light for you.
yeah, I just really struggled with where to add more contrast or not.
Yep. Absolutely. So I'm just going in with a small brush as things are drying and just refining the branches on the second layer, the negative space on the second layer. So my branches are nice and clear. That's what I'm differentiating right now with that fifth color in my fifth layer. Because you can see some of this is darker over here, but over here it's still a lighter blue in between. So I am going in between and just adding in this darker color so that color punches out. And I am refining the shape of the exterior shape of the branches. So the branches stand out more. So I'm not painting the interior of the branches. I'm just refining the exterior line per se. So it's more clean and crisp. Which is helping a lot for those branches to really jump out. Which even my second layer branches and those trees are still really light, Sharon, right? To your point. So having like a good solid secondary contrast is pretty important if you want there to be more of a visual difference. So it's kind of a fun thing to point out. Just making sure if you want to add in any more pigment on that fifth layer, just to kind of lean back in your chair and say, okay, do I want to add any more? Is it good? Again, you can always walk away from your artwork and come back to it. That's always okay. And if you ever do anything you don't like, you can always take like the corner of a paper towel and kind of just blot it up a little bit and just go update it. It's totally fine. I had a little bit of a dark spot, so I'm just going to go in and touch it up. That's all right. Just it's okay to make modifications and let it dry and go back. It's okay. But what a fun exercise for a negative painting class. Again, this was just an introduction. We did 5 layers. We did that foreground layer of that large tree in the foreground. Our second layer with those was those mid-ground trees. And then I did 1, 2, 3 mountain layers in the distance. And I resulted and ended with that darker contrasting. Now I can continue to take time and do some darker colors in between these trees for that darker kind of night sky in the distance to kind of pop out. You can always grab a smaller brush with that darker contrasting color to come in and go really gently and carefully in between those branches, right? So you are the artist. You are you have those choices of doing as much or as little as you wish with your artwork. But I want to thank you so much for being here. I encourage you to follow the YouTube channel. If you have any questions, please let me know. But be sure to use the comments below and post and join us in our Patreon community to let us know how you did and share your artwork with us. But thanks again for being here, and I hope to see you again in the future.